and you'll see the versions of the typeface there on the screen. We have some gradients that people can use when using our brand. And the other thing, because Virgin Mobile is actually part of kind of the Virgin Mobile empire, we actually have very specific requirements, and we actually have to approve this stuff kind of with the Virgin kind of parent company before we even move forward. So that's their way of maintaining consistency for Virgin across the world, across the 130 Virgin types of brands that exist around the world. But again, here in the U.S. for Virgin Mobile Wireless, here's what we stand for. And as you'll see in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see some pictures of people kind of using our phone. This gives people an idea of the target, the tone, the feel of how we want it to be displayed in the marketplace. And you'll see from an advertising perspective, the logos, the typeface, and also the feel will be very similar, because obviously, I think you can tell by those photos, we're obviously going after a younger, kind of energetic, audience that likes to live their life. So here's an example of a language system that you may want to consider when attempting to maintain brand consistency. And it not only provides parameters for within your organization, it also provides parameters for outside your organization, because frequently you run into situations where perhaps a retailer may develop their own poster, or they may someone may do an event, and you don't want them to take liberties in terms of how they use the brand. So the second thing I want to talk about is consistent use of language, right? So you got to make sure that your language is the same, especially when you're describing features, functions, or activities. This becomes particularly important in the wireless industry because there's so many complicated dynamics associated with, number of devices. You have texting, you have email, you have social media, you have talking. There's so many different things that you can do with your phone these days. So you want to make sure that the language that you're using is the same. So for example, this is just an example. In some advertising, we may only, for our brand, we may only call texting. We'll never call it messaging. We'll never call it pinging. We'll never call it anything else but texting. But you want to make sure that the language, in terms of how you describe your product, is the same, especially when you're dealing with things like brochures and collateral pieces. In wireless, typically people find out information about phone plans, and then the next thing they do is they go to the website, and then they go to a store. So they'll go to a retail establishment like a Target or a Best Buy, or they'll go to a kind of mom and pop store that sells a range of kind of cell phone plans. And you want to make sure that that language and that copy is the same regardless of where they go to seek information about your product. So the photography has to be the same. So what we typically do is we do a couple of, we call them stock photography shoots every year. We usually do about 2, maybe 3 a year. So we'll actually go out and we'll take a range of pictures, families, singles, just kids, basically people engaging with our product. And those approved stock photography, you'll see that on our website. You'll see that on all our in-store point of sale. You'll see that on pieces, all kind of in various touch points. But the point is that we stick to that stuff. We don't go out and take random pictures. We have stock photography, and so anybody in our company can go to that stock photography and say, okay, I need a teen, I need a mom, I need a family. I need someone having a party, and they use that stock photography, and that ensures that we're controlling the aesthetic feel of our brand. And again, I mentioned this before, we require, you have to make sure that this stuff is utilized across all of our touch points. So basically, from a brand perspective, and I manage the brand teams across all 4 of the brands, we provide very specific requirements in terms of how all of this stuff can be used. And it even goes so far as to approve a lot of the stuff that goes out the door, whether it's developed within our team or outside of our team. Okay, it's also very critical to define message priorities when marketing to consumers. So and this also gets into kind of what your brand stands for, and it's it's brand worth, but it's also about what does it stand for. So essentially, what are the most important attributes of your brand? And I'll just use, so here's some examples of attributes which should differentiate your brand or could differentiate your brand versus other competitors. So are you the lowest price? Are you the best quality? Are you the most effective? Do you offer the best service? Are you on the best network? So essentially, an example of an attribute could be something like no overages, no hidden fees on the best network. So you have to really define what your brand, what it stands for, and essentially what your key attributes are, and you have to make sure that that comes through in everything you do. Okay, so let me give you an example of very quickly of the Boost Mobile relaunch of last year and how it sort of played itself out from a consistency standpoint. What we found is that in doing research on the validity of our brand, we found that there was a core consumer frustration with wireless and the fact that there were all these surprises and bills, hidden fees, overages, taxes, things of that nature, and it really frustrated people. And so we have to do two things, because one of the interesting things in wireless is that it's not just about the brand, it's also about the product you offer. So you can offer, people can love your brand, but if they're walking into a retail store and they're faced with 10 other wireless plans, they might pick the lowest price. They might pick the unlimited brand. So they may love your brand, but that doesn't mean that it's going to translate into something they will actually buy. So in relaunching Boost, not only did we have to relaunch the brand, but we also had to create the right product. And the product that we created based on this frustration was a $50 price point, all in, no extra fees, no hidden costs, just all in. And in doing so, and in developing the marketing against that, we decided to take a very aggressive stance against other wireless carriers and really call out what was wrong in the wireless industry. And our campaign was called Unwronged, and it really showcased the variety of kind of wrongs in the industry and really positioned Boost as the solution to all those wrongs, so those overages, those hidden fees. I don't know if you've seen some of the recent advertising where a mother puts her kid in a pet carrier and kind of checks them in at the airport to try to save money because her bill's so high. That's kind of wrong. So we show these wrongs really to reinforce the fact that Boost is right. And an integrated marketing program was developed, and in conjunction with that marketing, we also redesigned our visual identity to make sure that it all fit. And the next page that I'll very quickly show you really shows how we were very consistent in terms of kind of look and feel and color palette and typeface across the board. So no matter how you interacted with Boost, you always took away the same message. Here are some examples of some of the more valuable brands in the world, just something to consider. Whether it's a big brand or a small brand, very important to maintain brand consistency. You have the old school brands like Coca-Cola, American Express, some of the newer brands, so to speak, like Apple and Google that have really come to bear in the last decade or so. And then you have brands that have, even to some degree, had some challenges like Starbucks and Toyota, and that's based on kind of Starbucks opened way too many locations. Toyota had some issues with their brakes. That affected their brand, but they're still considered very valuable. And part of that is from a consistency, because they've been consistent. How does consistency contribute to brand worth? First of all, ensures one message. Everyone knows Verizon is the network. Everyone knows that. And you can play. If I ask you about Verizon, you'll say it's the network. It increases consumer awareness and emotional connection with the brand, because you feel that they understand you. It breeds trust and familiarity, and then increases the likelihood that consumers will include that brand as part of their consideration set when they're ready to buy. It also reduces confusion with other brands. And finally, it ultimately helps maintain brand equity. Last slide, because I know I got to run, and thank you for staying with us. First of all, here's some ways to maintain brand consistency.